Hello everyone. In this tutorial, what I'll be covering is PHP else-if statements. Now, else-if statements are great if we wish to check for more than one condition. For example, say we wanted to create a website that displayed a certain message based on the temperature outside. So if the temperature is 60 degrees or less, we would say it is cold outside. Else if the temperature is between 60 degrees and 80 degrees, we would say it is warm outside. Else if the temperature is between 80 degrees and 100 degrees, we would say it is hot outside. Else it is extremely hot outside. So I know that is a lot to take in. So let's convert what I just said into a standard else if statement using plain English. All right, so first I'm going to start a comment block, because I'm not going to use the correct syntax, but it'll be easier for you to understand the basic layout. So first I'm going to type the word if, nothing new here, and then open my parentheses. I'm going to say if temp is less than 60 degrees, close my parentheses, open my curly brace, type it is cold outside, close my curly brace. All right, so now on a new line, this is the new part. I'm going to type else if. I'm going to put those two words together. Else if, open my parentheses, temp is greater than 60 degrees and temp is less than 80 degrees. Close my parentheses, open a curly brace. On the next line, I'm going to say it is warm outside. And then on the next line, I'm going to close my curly brace. And then on the next line, I'm going to say again, else if temp is greater than 80 degrees and temp is less than 100 degrees. Close my parentheses, open a curly brace. I'm going to type it is hot outside. Next line, close my curly brace. And then finally, I'm going to end this if statement by writing an else. It is extremely hot outside. And then I'm going to close my curly brace. All right, so let's reevaluate what I have here. So first I have the if statement, which is nothing new. And we know that if this condition is true, we're going to go ahead and execute this code. However, if this is false, we're going to go to the next else if statement, evaluate its condition. So basically, if the temperature is between 60 degrees and 80 degrees, we're going to go ahead and execute this code. However, if this condition is false, we're going to go to the next else if statement if there is one. So there is, so we're going to evaluate this condition. If that's true, we're going to execute this code. If all of these are false, including the if statement, we're just going to execute this code. So again, I should point out that if this else if condition was true, we would just execute this code and then we would jump out of this entire if statement. That'll be all that we would do. We'll execute this once and then we'll jump out. We wouldn't care to evaluate the following conditions if we had any. I should also point out that you can have as many else if statements as you wish. I just have two here to make it simpler. And also, you can't start an else if statement without a preceding if statement. So that means I couldn't start it without the if statement above. I can't start it like this. This isn't correct. So I have to have a preceding if statement, something to start this whole else if statement off. So now let's convert this into a real standard else if statement using the correct PHP syntax. And I'm going to write example. And I'm going to write or create a variable called temp, which is short for temperature. Assign the value 50. And in comments, I'm going to say holds the temperature. All right. And then on a new line, I'm going to say if temp is greater than 60, I'm going to echo out it is cold outside. All right. And now I'm going to write else if. I'm going to say else if temp is greater than 60 and temp is less than 80. Echo out. It is warm outside. Close my curly brace. Again, on the new line, I'm going to write another else if temp is greater than 80 and temp is less than 100. Echo out. It is hot outside. And finally, we're going to get to our else, and we're going to say else echo it is extremely hot outside. All right. Okay, so again, it should be very clear what's going on here. I've declared a variable, I've assigned a value to it, which is representing our degrees, and then I come to the if statement and I evaluate this condition. If it's true, I'm going to go ahead and execute this line of code. If that's true, I'm going to just go ahead and jump out of this if statement. I don't even care about the rest of these else ifs if this condition is true. However, if this condition is false, I'm going to go to the preceding else if statement, evaluate it, see if it's true. If it's true, I'm going to execute this code. And again, I'm going to jump out of this if statement and go to the rest of the code if we had any. So again, we can have as many else if statements as we wish. And you can see that the else if statement, unlike the else, allows us to evaluate an entire different condition. However, if none of these conditions are true, we're just going to go ahead and echo out it is extremely hot outside. But a common mistake that new PHP programmers make is they forget that you must have this preceding if statement before you start using these else if statements. So think of it this way, the else if statements are like the children of the if statement, which can be considered the mother. So without the mother, there cannot be any children, thus your else if statements will not work correctly. So let me go ahead and save this and just show you an example in our browser. I'm going to save this as else if.php. Come over to my browser, type in localhost, the PHP basics, and we're going to change this to else if.php. And as you can see, it says it is extremely hot outside. So the reason why is, and I did this purposely, is our first condition is false since 50 is not greater than 60. Also, 50 is not between 60 and 80 degrees. And also 50 is not between 80 and 100 degrees. So it by default goes to this else statement since all these conditions preceding it are false, and it goes ahead and execute this echo string. It is extremely hot outside. However, if we switch this greater than sign around to a less than sign, save it, load it in my browser, hit refresh. As you can see, it says it is cold outside. So that does conclude this tutorial, and hopefully now you have a better or new understanding about PHP else if statements. So be sure to take the online quiz at the phpbasics.com to ensure that you understand the basic concepts for PHP else if statements, and I'll see you in the next video.